This week on Israel Update, we have a special Codebreakers co-show where we are looking at one of the prophecies Kim gave concerning Benjamin Netanyahu, and Dubey brings us a very important update about what is going on with the new unity government in Israel. Watch now on israelupdate.org. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special show. I am Christie and I run the Israel Update channel along with Doobie, and this lovely specimen is...
I'm Donné, Clement Petrushka, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kim and Jane Clement's daughter, and I have decided to join Christie on Israel Update this week.
Yes.
All of you hear me talking about Israel Update all the time, so I thought, well, why not be on Israel Update?
Exactly.
So here we are.
Here we are, and Donné, obviously Kim and Jane's daughter, she runs Codebreakers and Prophetic Rewind, which is awesome. Prophetic Rewind goes out every Monday, and it's always these amazing moments thrown back to times with Kim that are just so beautiful.
And specifically, the last few weeks, I've been choosing I've been very specific about
Yes.
the broadcasts I'm putting on
Yes.
Prophetic Rewind. So make sure you go and look at especially over the past month,
Yeah.
look at Prophetic Rewind, what we've been putting up.
Really relevant and full of hope and
Kim.tv.
encouragement. So make sure you do that.
But-
But a lot has happened in Israel. A lot is
Yes.
going on. So, the last couple of weeks, obviously things have been crazy with COVID-19. So many terrible things have happened. Israel as a nation has suffered enormously. Their economy has been one of the worst hit out of any nation because so much of their economy is dependent on tourism. Also tragically, there were a couple of very beautiful human beings that had survived the Holocaust that got taken out by this virus.
No.
Yes. So some of the last kind of
that
living
is
legends.
very sad.
The last man standing who was part of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. He was part of the Jewish warriors who fended off the Nazis for that month in the Warsaw Ghetto. He died this past week. And he sat there with hardly any weapons and fought off these Nazis for a month as part of this Jewish resistance, and he was one of the only ones who survived Auschwitz, moved to Israel, lived, thrived, had a beautiful family, and this virus took him. So that was
incredible.
That was a...
I actually think maybe that's significant, Christie.
Yeah.
Because obviously he must be very old.
He is a lot older.
And we know that COVID-19 is really affecting elderly people.
It is.
But I'm thinking of the Fourth Reich prophecy.
That's what I was thinking. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Okay. So my father prophesied, I don't remember the year now off the top of my head, but he prophesied in the 2000s, early 2000s, mid 2000s.
It was mid, somewhere around there.
I'll find it for you.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll find it. But he prophesied about the rise of a Fourth Reich. And then what he did was he sent me to Europe
Yes.
and to Poland, specifically to Auschwitz. So I've been to Auschwitz. I've seen Birkenau 1 and 2. I met a survivor named Kitty when I was there and was interviewed by the BBC.
I remember that.
He wanted me specifically to see, and I even found it strange that he didn't go, because he could have come, and he didn't.
Yeah.
He wanted me to see it and sent me there, and it had a profound impact on my life. I will never go back.
But I think it changed you forever.
It did change me forever. I mean, at the time I was newly pregnant with my first child, and when I saw, because there's a museum part that you go through in the beginning, and when I saw the children's shoes, I broke. And so it was one of those things where I couldn't, where you feel like you're going to cry in public, but you can hold it back and kind of get yourself. I couldn't. I just wept. It just came out of me. And I had to say to one of the guards, please just get me out of here, because it was crowded. There were tourists everywhere. And I had to be taken out. And as I was being taken out, the BBC's coming up with the survivor and cameras, they're big cameras and stuff. And they said, they see me crying.
Yes.
So they said, can we interview you? And I said, no, I don't want to be interviewed. And then they said, we have the survivor here, please let us interview you. And all of a sudden in my spirit, I just was like, no, this is why you're here.
Yes.
God sent you here for a reason. So I said, okay, fine, I'll take an interview. And I spent a long time talking to Kitty, and Kitty warned that it could happen again. And both me and the BBC interviewer who had the camera we're both saying, but look where we are. How could this possibly ever happen again? But here you've seen,
Yes.
especially over the last 5 or so years, this very strange anti-Semitism.
It's risen enormously.
Because it's against the Jews in Israel.
Yes.
Not Jews in America, not Jews in America. You say anything about a Jewish person anywhere in the world, and you are anti-Semitic.
Yes.
But if you are against of Israel, or if you're against Israel being a state,
Yes.
having it being its own nation, you are. That's okay. Or
Yeah, they speak about it. They basically say that, there's kind of this movement of, it's like an anti-Zionist movement. They don't want the Jews to have a homeland. Now, we know that's a spirit. And that's what your dad was seeing.
yes,
This rise of the Fourth Reich. And I think there's these faces of it where Islam is obviously a massive component. And then now there's this rise of neo-Nazism.
yes,
And I mean, we've seen it, because I'm obviously monitoring all this, and I think in the last round of co-shows we did, we kind of touched on it. But how in Europe, I mean, anti-Semitic incidents have risen by like 89% in almost every sphere of Europe, and that's looking at data from the last couple of years.
yes. And so now you have this with the Jewish people.
Yes.
But then what about the Christians?
Yes.
The Christians are now being pushed in with this.
Yes.
And what we've witnessed here in America, and this is where I think that Fourth Reich prophecy is coming in even more, because it's not just something against the Jews, it's against the Christians as
And
well.
we have the same root.
Exactly.
We're grafted into them, into the Jews.
Exactly. The Fourth Reich prophecy, like what was this?
Yes.
Because it was the last thing that Dad and I were talking about the last night that I was with him before
He
he
was
got
speaking
sick.
about the book.
We were beginning to write the Fourth Reich book. And you and I are going to finish it.
Yes.
When we have time.
When we have time.
But
when our kids are back in school.
I find it also worthy to note that it was the last conversation I had with him before he got sick, was him saying to me as I was leaving, don't forget we've got to work on the Fourth Reich book.
Yes.
Because he was under a deadline at the time.
Yes.
So, I don't know, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing the fulfillment of prophecy, and so the question I ask is, how do we deal with it?
Yes, and I think for us to just remember is that Israel was probably the thing that was closest to your dad's heart.
Oh, yes.
Israel, we know that, and there are obviously voices in the world today that support Israel, that love Israel, but there was nobody like Kim Clements in terms of his love for Israel, the way he would prophesy. And this leads me to my next kind of moment, speaking about how COVID has attacked the nation of Israel. The economy's down, unemployment's skyrocketed. Normally for Israel, I think unemployment's very low. It's around 3%. And, over 25% of their population filed for unemployment over this time. And so one of the issues with that, of course, was that there still has not been an official government formed. That was another issue they were looking at. But, this very week, something positive came out of that, and that there's this unity government being formed with Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz. And what it looks like, of course, we're going to have to wait and see how it all gets fleshed out. But what it looks like now is that Benjamin Netanyahu will remain prime minister for the next 18 months with Benny Gantz as the vice prime minister, and then they'll trade, but Netanyahu won't be stepping out. He will then become the vice prime minister. And this made me think, well, the scripture that I had, was just kind of on my heart about this is Proverbs 21:1, and it says, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He directs like a watercourse wherever he pleases. Now, I feel like Benjamin Netanyahu is one of those where his heart is in God's hands. And God has absolutely directed him. But your dad prophesied about this. And this is the thing that I wanted to give hope to those of you that love Israel. You obviously, if you love Israel, that's why you're watching the show, and we know that and we love you. But your dad prophesied and he said, I will take Netanyahu, whether ruler or not. And he referred to him as a prophet. And that's given me a lot of hope, because I felt stressed about, we've spoken about this, what's going to happen to Israel, because Benjamin Netanyahu is the one that's got a very strong allegiance and alliance with Trump. Benjamin Netanyahu is the one that's got these very good relationships with countries like India. He's the one who's met with the Pope and, this new relationship with some of the members of the Saudi royal family. He's the one with the connection with the King of Jordan. He's the one who has established these really fantastic diplomatic relationships. And look at what's happened with him and Trump together.
Exactly. And that's what my dad would prophesy. He said, look at what happens with America and Israel at the same time.
And he was prophesying that before the embassy got moved,
Years
before
ago.
Trump came out and declared Jerusalem as the eternal undivided capital of Israel, recognized by the United States, when he returned the Golan Heights to the sovereignty, when he supported certain annexations of various parts of the land, all these different things. And even his peace plan solution is, I told you, we spoke about this on one of the shows we did a while ago. I read all 181 pages of it. It was a long document, but worth it. And even that, it's very clear. Jerusalem belongs to Israel.
Right.
The sovereignty of Jerusalem belongs to the Israelis. He was, even though there was a two-state solution offered, he wasn't talking about returning to pre-1967 borders. But what I've been thinking about is that prophecy of your dad's, about how God said, I will take Netanyahu whether ruler or not. And so what that has given me hope for is that God is not surprised by what's gone on with this virus. And this is something Donné and I are going to be talking about on tomorrow's House of Destiny show. So tomorrow we're together, we're doing a Codebreakers kind of with a little bit of an Israel flair special. And we're looking at not just Israel, but kind of everything. We're going to be looking at what Kim said and saw about the time that we find ourselves in. So we're not going to talk about that now. That's going to be tomorrow on the House of Destiny show. And that's at noon Pacific. And you can find that at houseofdestiny.tv. But for today, obviously, we're focusing on Israel. And I know a lot of you out there love Benjamin Netanyahu. We love him. And what gave me hope and courage was that your dad saw this. He saw this, and at the time, Netanyahu's his strength seemed immovable. But now, in this last year, everything feels like it's gone. Oh, absolutely. We were panicking. What's going to happen with Netanyahu? Every single election, 3 of them in 1 year.
I'll remind you of something else my dad prophesied. He said on February 22nd, 2014, he said, they would give half of Jerusalem away. That will not happen. That's what he prophesied. And that day is when he got everything. Just the most incredible day.
Yes.
And one of the things he said that day was, they will not do it. They will not give half of Jerusalem.
And in 2014, you're saying it was 2014 that he prophesied
2014,
that.
February.
Under the Obama administration, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to halve it. And the other prophecy, of course, that your dad had to Obama, and I know we're going to speak about that more tomorrow, but just as about how there was a warning almost given to him about, hey, you need to have this captivating love for Jerusalem, for Israel. And obviously we know that wasn't true, but now President Trump, and again, Kim prophesied and said he will not be a praying president when he starts, but he will become one. And we're seeing that now. The love that President Trump has for Israel, the devotion he has, it's unparalleled.
It is.
Benjamin Netanyahu said it. He said there has never been a president that is as great a friend to the nation of Israel as Donald Trump.
And God did that in Donald Trump's life because, I don't know if you know this, Donald Trump's father was very dear friends with a Jewish man who had survived the Holocaust or something. I don't remember the details, but they were very good friends. And so growing up, Donald Trump was very influenced by this Jewish family, and they worked together to help with the synagogues
That's amazing.
in New York City. Yes, there's an article I found. I'll send it to you, and maybe we can share
I'll
it
put
with
it
the
up on the
people as
Facebook
well.
page.
Yeah, is that God placed that person in the Trump family's life
For a reason.
from the beginning, so that growing up, Trump has a softness for the Jewish people because his family was so close to that family, which only God could have planned.
Of course.
Something like that, because look at what's going on in the world now. When Donald Trump is president, and Netanyahu, and everything that's going on, there's like a parallel going on, and you see this,
which is incredible.
the same things happening in both at the same time, and I think it's worthy of note, worthy of us to not only notice but pray about.
Yes, and that God planned this.
Oh yes, it did.
And so we're coming to the end of our Israel update segment for now with Donné and I, this kind of co-show, code breaking a little bit some of the prophecies that Kim gave. It is fun. But now we're going to hear an update from Dubey about the election situation, the non-election situation in Israel, about what's going on with the government. He'll be able to explain that to us in a little bit more detail. So we're going to go to the segment of Dubey now. But again, make sure you watch tomorrow. Donné and I are going to be doing a Codebreakers Israel update show on the main House of Destiny broadcast. And as always, every Friday, we're always here with a new show for you, only on IsraelUpdate.org. So I say to you, God bless and Shabbat Shalom.
Israel Update is brought to you by the generous supporters of the Israel Partnership. Because of their love for Israel, we are able to bring you this show and continue to sow into the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. For more information on how to become a sustaining partner, please click the Israel Partner banner below.
Today's update is all about the new government in Israel. Finally, eventually, we do have a government. Benjamin Netanyahu and Benjamin Gantz signed the agreement a few days ago, one evening before Holocaust Memorial Day, which is very symbolic, because if there is anything that is really unifying Israel and the Israelis all over the world, is the memory of the Holocaust. These terrible events that took place in Nazi Germany and in the states that Germany conquered during the Second World War, the Nazis and their proxies that literally slaughtered and killed over 6 million Jewish people, amongst them 1.5 million children. The most unifying event in the history of the Jewish people is the Holocaust, which there is no dispute, of course, and we are all together in that memory. So it's very symbolic, at least for me, that the Lord God of Israel was inspiring the two leaders to be able to sit down and close the gaps and bridge over the gaps, the political gaps, and sit down to the table, negotiate, and sign up an agreement that would start and enable us to have a government that would be functioning for the years to come. So, this is how politics is the maybe science of making the impossible possible, or vice versa. But in the end of the day, these two leaders, these two giants, I would say, in a way, were able to sit down, negotiate, and finally reach an agreement that Benjamin Netanyahu would start as the Prime Minister of Israel for the first 1.5 years, and then they're going to rotate, and Benny Gantz is going to take over and he'll become the Prime Minister of Israel, while Benjamin Netanyahu will become the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So slowly will fade out. And Netanyahu is 70 years old now, and he's dealing with a lot of allegations and accusations, and he has a lot on his plate, and he really needs to concentrate in clearing his name in the media and in front of the justice arena here in Israel, and he has several lawsuits going on, which most of them, I'm sure, is just jealousy and I don't know what else. But he has to concentrate in just clearing his name before he can go back to the position that he was holding before. We know that the leaders of Israel didn't want to go through the fourth elections within 2 years, which is really bad, and it's a huge waste of money, specifically now when we are facing this coronavirus crisis here in Israel and all around the world. Every election is billions of shekels, billions of dollars, and it's really a lot of money that goes for waste. So I'm just so happy that I can announce it, that we do have a government. It's, as I said, symbolic. It was just one evening before the Holocaust evening, and as you can see the flags behind me right now, this is a week before Israel's Independence Day and Memorial Day. So these are the most unifying days and events in the life of an Israeli, and therefore we should really face this time with a solid government who can really control the events and also take care of the many challenges that we are facing with the coronavirus, specifically financially, when people are unemployed. Over a quarter of the working force of Israel are unemployed right now and been dismissed from their jobs due to the lockdown and to the fact that a lot of the businesses are closed right now. So I'm sure that we need a solid and a strong government that is functioning in order to defroze budgets and release money from all kinds of different government funds so they can compensate the people that are not working and help them and support them through this crisis and through the tough times. So literally, that's the main thing, that when you have a unified government, it doesn't say that the right wing won or the left wing won. It says in a way that Israel won, and most likely for at least the time being, we will be solid to challenge to face the challenges that are just coming right now and we will be able to have a functioning government that will deal with that and take everything into consideration. And I'm sure that within few years we'll be back again to the same argument and the same issues between right and left. And I'm thinking also that the people of Israel will be able to see maybe the fruits of unity, and this might shade a different light to the political arena and maybe for the future elections to come. I'm looking forward for this, and also I'm quite happy that one of the principles that they did sign up is the announcement of Donald Trump and the American administration that Israel can annex the West Bank should they want to do that. And after all these years, after all the years since 1967, that we are being blamed around the world for conquering another people and taking over their land, and all these stories that everybody's just using in order to hate us and to target us, and BDS and boycott Israel and all this movement. And maybe finally Israel will reach an agreement where we can definitely give a different political position and status to the West Bank, so-called. And maybe, if we're going to annex it or do something about it that will change the way that the game goes right now, maybe Israel will be able also to push back some of the criticism and the challenges that we are facing when we are standing in front of the world who accuses us in doing all kinds of different terrible things, which you and I together we know that Israel is never doing any atrocities, really taking care of the people on the other side, and all they want is just to kick us out of this land and take over the entire land. But maybe politically we would reach some kind of an agreement right now when there is a unified government, a united government, and it would be easier to deal with the situation when you are sitting around the same government table and facing the challenges with a big agreement. So please pray for us. They haven't presented the government yet, they didn't swear yet, but we know already what the structure is going to be, and we're just praying to God to let it happen and push it through, and let us face the challenges we're facing with more unity here in Israel. Thank you so much for all your prayers and all the time that you have spent in your heart, in your love to Israel. Thank you for keep sowing into Israel, into our ministry, into the challenges that we are facing. I love you a lot, Dubey, and of course, I'll keep you posted as things will unfold. Love you. Bye now.